well in their rejecting it, but they did so anyway. And it's a horrible result of more decisions by Hamas that continue the suffering. But that has been the history. And so we not only decry the loss of life and the impact on children around the world, but enough to where President Trump has one term, and his focus has clearly been peace on this planet in every single fashion. And it will essentially be able to work because he's known to get results, he's known to be serious, and we're seeing it move forward. So it's a shame that Hamas has allowed this to occur, but look nowhere else other than the people who have facilitated this suffering from the beginning. The Trump administration, Secretary Rubio, the Department of State of this country are determined and are the ones working to make sure that this stops. And certainly the region understands that this is a real opportunity finally to change what's been happening in the
world. Can I follow up, Tammy?
Yes, staying in this region, please.
I was just wondering if Secretary Rubio had any conversations since the strikes with his Israeli counterparts, and are you trying to ensure that when Israel does these strikes using U.S. weapons that they're targeting, being as careful as possible in their targeting?
I can tell you that, of course, our teams, they're constantly in touch. There has been no phone call arranged yet, direct phone call between Secretary Rubio and Israeli counterparts or Israeli leadership. But of course, this is not a situation where if it's out of the news, the teams working to change the environment stop and leave an office or stop and just do something else. So this is a constant, as you might imagine, a constant effort on every element of foreign policy, certainly when it comes to war, ceasefires, ending conflict. So they're constantly working, and certainly we want peace. And we're working for this because we deplore the loss of life, as do the Israelis. These are things that are happening that none of us want to continue, and so it's difficult. But those conversations are ongoing, and of course we stand with Israel in every circumstance. They are our ally, and we continue to work to make sure that this conflict that we're able to stop it. Yes, Saeed, please.
Thank you, Tammy. I mean, just to follow up on Nadia's question, there were 180 Palestinian children that were killed and so on. And my question to you that Israel has used like 100 fighter jets supplied by the United States of America. There's absolutely no ground-to-air defenses in Gaza, so there was no response whatsoever. And that, hence I guess the quest for restraint and so on that the U.S. probably should ask Israel on the issue, the humanitarian issue. It's not only the bombing. I mean, there was a humanitarian catastrophe to begin with the holding of the aid and so on, and now we have this situation. Is the United States concerned that there is a looming catastrophe, or probably of an apocalyptic, nature coming through?
The actions of the world against what's happening make it clear that we are going to get this to be stopped. What I can tell you is it is a catastrophe, and there was a ceasefire on October 7th, I should say. There was a ceasefire, and it was broken by, apocalyptic, by the massacre of 1,200 people, the taking of over 250 hostages, remaining hostages that still are in unknown conditions. Certainly Idan Alexander deserves to be free, and he still is not. So when we think about why we're in this situation, let us not forget. We talk about never forgetting certain things that happen, and it's important to keep reminding people of the things what sparked this, the obscenity of October 7th, the obscenity of this wholesale massacre that was videotaped, involving the slaughter of children, of babies, of women being raped as then they're murdered while they're being raped in front of some things are so difficult we choose to not think about them or hold them in our consciousness because we can't. But in this situation, it is a mistake to look at dynamics within a section of what has occurred and remember the history of what has led us here and the extraordinary surprise at the American approach, the Trump approach, to try something new because this can't continue as a civilized world. It can't continue. So yes, we decry everything that is going on, which is why we're doing what we're doing now.
A quick follow-up
Yeah,
on
yes,
the
yes, sir.
solution.
I just want to follow up there on the material point about, the State Department is bound by the Leahy laws and other laws of the United States when it supplies weapons to its ally Israel. The point has been made that over half of these casualties, or those killed, were women and children. So is there a process underway in this building to assess if those actions using American weapons were compliant with international law?
Well, what we do, we work and apply international law. We apply certainly our applicable U.S. laws, I should say. And that is something, of course, that we are committed to. That's what we ask of others to do, and that's what we're doing. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if I shift regions.
I'm sorry?
Can I shift away
I
from
guess,
Middle East?
we're going to shift region. You have a few more questions here. I will come right back to you. There. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Tammy. A couple questions. Number one, on the Israel-Hamas unraveling of the ceasefire. I understand the U.S.'s position. What about the actual plan? The first time around, there was an immense political investment made in garnering a ceasefire. Is the U.S. planning through the State Department again to invest that much political capital in getting a ceasefire back in place? And if so, is the route the first time to pressure Prime Minister Netanyahu? Is it now to pressure Qatar to lean on Hamas? What is the plan of action here?
Well, first, I'm not going to discuss negotiations or diplomatic conversations or plans that might be emerging or not. What we do know, and I think has been very public, is the fact that President Trump is not just wanting a peaceful day or a peaceful week. Secretary Rubio is not flying around to speak with his counterparts, to handle summits and speaking with the parties involved so that we can have a peaceful fortnight. This is over. It is over. The people, all of us are subjected, certainly not as much as the people on the ground in the Middle East, but the world has to be done with this situation. So the commitment, we would, with the nature of what the President Trump has already been able to create in his first term, in his personal life, the nature of the commitment of Secretary Rubio, that we have got an understanding of what, enough of a history of knowing what has happened, that we know it has to be handled differently. The region understands this, and the Trump administration we have this window of this administration to change the trajectory of what has been decades and decades, coming up on 100 years of carnage that is now unacceptable. So if it's going to be done, everything that is necessary to get it done will be delivered by President Trump.
One other
All right.
question for you, Karen.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Tammy. I have two questions, and Russia, North Korea, and South Korea. First question, South Korea. It was revealed that the former Biden administration classified South Korea as a sensitive country in the Department of Energy in January 2025. What is the specific reason for classifying South Korea as a sensitive country, and what is the Trump administration's stance on allies? And
All right, so let me answer that. Is that, in fact, I have to refer you to the Department of Energy, all right? So that's the Department of Energy designation.
Okay.
And also, obviously, I'll reiterate, is that the United States greatly values the close relationship we have with the Republic of Korea on scientific research collaboration, and we look forward to continued robust cooperation. So that's my answer there, and I promised you I would come to you.
Can I have
Yeah.
one more?
Well,
Russia,
let's-
Russia,
well-
Russian deputy.
Do you want to cede?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let me go back.
All right, let's do that. All right, go
Whatever
ahead.
you think's
I'll be
best.
back with you. Sure.
Since we're
why
off
not?
the region anyway.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask about the case of this missing spring breaker in the Dominican Republic who's feared to have drowned. Authorities in the country have effectively detained an American college student who's a witness in the case by withholding his passport. Is the State Department working to bring him home?
Well, you're talking about Joshua Ribe, if I'm saying his last name right, yes. So we and I say this often, and we'll probably be saying it a lot more, is that there is no higher priority than the safety and security of U.S. citizens who are overseas. That matters to us. We're aware of this situation, certainly, and we take seriously our commitment to assist U.S. citizens abroad. It is a situation where I can't discuss certainly specifics, but we know that the U.S. Embassy is in communication with him and his family and his lawyer, and we are providing consular assistance as well. So that's where I have to set it, and I hope that answers the question. Is that right? All right, we'll go back here.
Thank you again.
So about Russia, yes?
Yes, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Rudenko visited North Korea last weekend and discussed the war in Ukraine with North Korean Kim Jong-un. How does the Trump administration concerns about the military cooperation between the Russia and North Korea, but the Russians, they still want to remain the North Korean troops in Russia, Moscow? Thank you.
Right, so you're asking about the nature of our reaction to Russia and North Korea and their alliance, essentially. So we know, of course, that's a perfect example of how third countries, like the DPRK, have perpetuated this war. So this is a dynamic that other countries are involved in, and certainly, very specifically, the DPRK. And they bear responsibility for the nature of what's going on. We continue to be concerned about their direct involvement in the war, their military deployment to Russia, and any support provided by the Russian Federation to North Korea in return also must end. So they're realizing the situation is changing, and that's good news, but we certainly, I think it's been made very clear the difference.
Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Thank you. Following up on the Ukrainian children, the grant that you confirmed has been terminated to the research initiative at Yale University. Does the Trump administration and the State Department believe that it is in the interest of the United States and the American people to support initiatives like that one that has been gathering evidence on Moscow's abduction of Ukrainian children? And you mentioned that Trump had spoken to Zelensky about this, and he had said he would work closely with both parties to make sure that those Ukrainian children are returned home. Are you saying that this administration and this department are going to help find other initiatives or support other initiatives to help find and bring back those Ukrainian children?
Well, as our review began when it came to foreign aid, I cautioned everyone to not associate buildings or an infrastructure or the existing status quo as being the only way possible to achieve our goals. And that includes foreign aid. We were, of course, reminded that while certain things were being cut, it didn't mean we were stepping away from foreign aid. It's about stepping away from abuse and a waste of money and an infrastructure and a bureaucracy that ends up taking the finances that exist, and us needing to have finally an even playing field to determine what's been working, what isn't working, how to start again without an infrastructure that's going to take a majority of the funding in order to breathe life into itself, so that we can actually spend money and do work that gets directly to the heart of the matter and saves people's lives, gets them life-saving assistance that is aligned, as those things are, with the American point of view.
Are you
and
saying
the
that
American
initiative was abusing funds?
Well, I know that it was cut, and it was cut and the things that have been cut were not assessed to be within the framework of what mattered to this administration on the issue of making America safe and secure or more prosperous, but also it's an issue about waste and abuse. So when we think about a particular effort, it's important to realize that it's the goal that we need to address versus a particular structure that might be happening. So when we have a funded grant at a university that might be cut because it's been determined that it needed to be cut, and then you've got the presidents of the nations involved in the issue talking about it personally on the phone, the president of the most powerful country in the world saying, I'm going to do something here. We're going to work on this. I think that's a pretty good, clear indication that we can still work on issues that matter and make them happen without it being in a certain structure that has existed. So I think that's pretty clear. It was very important for President Trump's comments to President Zelensky on that matter. Yes, Sean.
Can I go back to the issue of cuts in U.S. government-funded media?
Sure.
Radio Marti, the Secretary has long been supportive of that. It's broadcasting into Cuba. Does the Secretary support the elimination of Radio Marti?
I have not spoken to him about the specifics of the nature of these particular programs, but what I said on Monday is I'll repeat here, is that the American sensibility we value and have talked about, and it matters to us, the issue of people's voices being heard, the issue of freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and the ability, I think the desire and the ability to do that is always a priority when it comes to how we spread the word of democracy and want to improve the quality of people's lives. How that happens might change over time. And I think that's, again, bringing us back to the fact that we've gotten used to a certain infrastructure, but how we apply the values that we hold may change. And so I will ask him, we'll take that back as a specific question for the Secretary. That is something that I think is important, and I'll find out for you. But what I do know is that his number one priority is to make sure this nation is safe financially, that Americans are safe, that we are secure within this world, and that's going to be part of, I think, the transition that happens.
Can I do a brief
Yes, sir.
follow-up?
Going back to Ukraine talks, if I may. The Secretary last week met with Ukrainian colleagues, and he discussed full ceasefire deal. And he gave a press conference, the latest one I think was in Canada, where he said that, when we're going to talk to Russian leadership, we will know if they say no, I'm going to quote the Secretary, it will tell us a lot about their goals and what their goals are and what their mindset is. There are concerns that, with current achievement you have, Russia might be using these negotiations to accelerate victory, to weaken Ukraine, to strengthen itself. Energy, infrastructure deal or ceasefire will help Russia more than Ukraine, because right now winter is over.
There's lots of conversations that we have that are suppositions and what we imagine because of our own experience and what we think may or may not happen. But there's something very specific happening right now. Conversations between the top leaders, conversations between all the parties involved, measures so that people will be meeting in the coming days to get to specifics. No one's waiting for the next week to maybe have another call, to maybe figure out something, maybe you'll show up. These are specific actions that are being taken immediately. So we've been in this really fast environment where everything's happening fast. The good news is, so is peace. We've never been closer. So there's all kinds of reasons that might be informing President Putin's reasoning. I don't know, and I'm not going to guess at what those are. What I do know is what President Trump is doing, the hard and fast framework of what we expect in the next few days in Saudi Arabia, the people who are committed to this, and that everyone now is at a table to get this to the same goal.
Thank you. On Iran, if I may.
All right.
Tammy.
Daphne.
Just a question on Turkey. President Erdogan's main political rival has been detained on charges of corruption and aiding a terrorist group. What's the U.S. stance on this? Do you have any concerns?
Well, we would encourage Turkey to respect human rights, to handle its own internal framework appropriately. We're not going to comment on the decision-making, the internal decision-making of another country, but except to remind them that we expect them to behave in a manner that respects the rights of all of its citizens, and I think that's pretty obvious, but it's good to repeat. Yes, sir. Standing.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Tammy. In Pakistan, the most popular leader, Imran Khan, has been in jail now for last 2 years.
Could you introduce yourself too?
Jaleel Afridi from the Frontier.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Thank you, Tammy. In Pakistan, the most popular leader with the majority number of seats in the parliament, Imran Khan, and the biggest charity collector as well, has been languishing in jail since last 2 years. And in 2 years, everything in the country, whether it is the democracy, whether it is the women's rights, everything has been shattered since last 2 years. President Trump was talking a lot about Pakistan before the elections, and thousands of his new voters in the US and millions of Pakistanis are expecting him to take some sort of action with regard to that country. Do you have anything in mind or have heard anything the president said?
Well, what I can tell you, as I've just noted about Turkey, is I'm not going to comment on the internal frameworks of another country. I do know that, what's it been, 8 weeks? President Trump's been here 8 weeks?
Yes.
And it's a lot's going on, right? Regarding his intentions and actions, you can reach out to the White House, but I do think that President Trump has made it clear that, as has Secretary Rubio, that we care about the planet, we care about our neighbors, we care about what's happening on the globe, and that's been evidenced by our actions. So. Thank you, sir. Yes. All right, now, go with you. I've been skipping around you here, and there's no reason for that.
Switching to deportations, if I may, couple questions. One, has there been any direct exchanges with Venezuela since last Saturday regarding the deportation flights that you mentioned before, the ones that are supposed to take Venezuelans directly back to Venezuela? And also, I'd like to know if there's any details that can be shared regarding an agreement with El Salvador in regards of El Salvador incarcerating members of Tren de Aragua organization. Thanks.
Well, I think we know of one request that El Salvador had, which is they wanted 2 of the worst MS-13 members deported back to them. And we said, okay. So they got those 2 MS-13 gang members. What we also know when it comes to El Salvador is they're dedicated to working with partners to end the crisis of illegal immigration, is committed to accept certain individuals removed from the United States, including the TDA members. And they also, besides the MS-13 members, they also requested 21 of its most wanted gang members who are El Salvadoran to go back as well. So we accommodated that also. And we plan to work with Congress to provide assistance to support El Salvador's correction system, which seems fair. And on Venezuela, you're asking if there's been any more. Well, I think the message I mentioned at the top of this briefing was that they've got to start doing it, or there's going to be serious problems. There's going to be sanctions, and we will be reacting. So they've been told they've got to. At this point, I don't believe any more certainly has moved, and certainly some of this we're looking at the judge's order, et cetera. But what we do know is that deportation flights will continue to other countries and other regions. All right. Oh, yes, please. Yes, Nick.
On Friday, Special Envoy Grinnell announced that Venezuela had agreed to accept the repatriation flights.
Well, that's nice. It's nice to say so, and doing it will be an important gesture.
So, but have they signaled that they're reneging on that agreement that's been announced, or?
Well, again, I'll refer you to the Secretary's tweet, which I think speaks for itself. It was very strong. President Trump said also that Maduro has not been taking Venezuelan deportees back fast enough. And this is not something that will be negotiated. Also, nor does it merit any reward of any sort. And also, if he does not accept the return of the deportees, of course, we will start to employ escalating sanctions. So it is about what our requirements are for well, I'll just leave it at that. I was going into my talk radio mode, and that was not going to be appropriate. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Mike from Al Jazeera.
Very good. Nice to meet you.
I just want to go back to the statement about Ukraine, in which it is stated that American ownership of power plants within Ukraine would be a way of guaranteeing their protection. Is we talking about physical ownership, taking over ownership of the plants from the Ukrainian authorities?
Well, again, that comes from President Trump, who is one of the best businessmen we think has ever been around. and he knows how to make deals. And there's a serious consideration, in fact, that if you have an American-owned entity via a company, perhaps not certainly the government necessarily, that creates, I think the presumption is that it creates a deterrent to strike, that you have also an economic partnership that increases the economic viability of a nation, the general, certainly infrastructure stability of a nation. When you have people running your infrastructure or in a particular part of the infrastructure who know what they're doing, and that maintains not just the economic framework, but also the security framework because of the nature and the need for energy. It also is, I think it is, I don't want to presume what President Trump was considering, but just as a regular person, you'd realize that it is probably somewhat beneficial to have an economic relationship with a nation that has a history of being able to protect itself and protect its friends, and makes it a little bit more difficult to attack you because of what the results might be. All right. Yes, sir.
Ahmed Hazim, Jazeera Arabic. Just want to go back to Gaza. I don't think that I got some of your answer there. Is the U.S. proposal that Hamas rejected, as you said, is it still on the table? And are you still pushing for another kind of a deal that to end this new escalation now and get us back to the track to negotiation for the second phase of the original ceasefire agreement?
Yes, knowing the envoys, the special envoys that we have, it's not that anything is off the table. It is about adhering to what the bridge would be, and would have been, and that is something that can still happen. So that's what we hope for. It's why we do this, right? It's wanting to have that and to try to forestall saying no and going back to the old dynamic. So when you've worked hard on an issue and it's a proposal that's been made, that certainly is something that can be revisited. All right. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Tammy. One question on Iraq. How does this administration, looking at the disputes between Erbil and Baghdad over the...
I'm sorry, between what?
Between the Christian region of Iraq and Iraqi government over the energy issue and also over the budget issue. And are you willing to help to resolve this issue? And my second question, you said the diplomacy is the best tool to approach the Iran to resolve the issues between you. But what we hear from the Iranian foreign minister, they say that there are that they don't go to negotiate with the U.S. with the maximum pressure. How do you see this condition? Are you willing to get them some relief?
Well, here's what I'll say about the Iraqi government, that we're urging the Iraqi government to reach an agreement. You're talking about energy, yes?
Yeah.
With the international oil companies to resume oil exports through the Iraq-Turkey pipeline as soon as possible, and to honor the existing contracts with U.S. companies. So that's part of the issue. Reopening the ITP ensures Iraqi oil can reach global, especially European markets. Iraq benefits from the stability of resilient supply chains, as we all do. Regarding Iran, I can't speak to their reasoning on most anything, obviously, but it's President Trump has an approach that he's committed to because he wants a result. And we are seeing some of those results now, and we will continue to see more. Certainly the Houthis are seeing the results of what we are committed to do to make sure that things change in this planet. And I have no doubt Iran has noticed that. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, there are reports in the Lebanese media that
I'm sorry, in which media?
Lebanese media.
Lebanese media, yes.
Yes, that Morgan Ortagus had calls with the speaker and the prime minister, pressuring, I'm quoting here, pressuring them to start negotiations, political negotiations with the Israeli beyond the ceasefire. Is this accurate? Are you trying to start negotiations?
Well, so you're asking a question about something that you saw in media that may or may not have happened, and so is a hypothetical, and that I should speculate. I can't do that. We're going to move on. Yes, ma'am, in the back, right there, with glasses. Yes, ma'am.
I want to move to the red Sea, please, and talk about the Red
I'd
Sea
say
shipping.
stay right here, but yes, go ahead.
Yeah, the commercial activity there obviously very disrupted. Is the United States working with partners like Great Britain, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia to solve the problem with Houthi attacks in the Red Sea? Or is that just a U.S. Attack right now?
That's, I need to go back and check, because I was going to presume here, and I need to go back and check and see regarding what other elements might be involved. But let's make sure we get that to her, should we? All right, good.
Can I also ask that on Ukraine, with the power plants in Zaporizhia, Mykolaiv, and Kursk, if there's any move to have some observers come and look, because those have been at least on generators, some of them for 3 years.
Well, I'm sure that when we're just, what Saudi Arabia will have with this meeting of technical individuals, that's even a point after a ceasefire's been achieved, right? When you have observers, right? That is not, none of that is going to be discussed. Nothing with either Russia or Ukraine can be discussed regarding that until we have a ceasefire, to where then we can move to talk about the specifics of how to implement the security as we move forward. So
there are people that are in place to observe.
All right, we do one more, and we'll. I'm sorry.
On Bangladesh.
Bangladesh. All right. Yes.
Thank you so much, and Tammy, congratulations. This is your third time, but this is my first time here. Thank you so much.
All right. Good. So I'm not the newbie then.
Okay.
Good.
U.S. Intelligence Chief Ms. Tulsi Gabbard has warned about Bangladesh that growing threat of Islamist extremism and effort to establish an Islamic caliphate. While she didn't directly accuse the interim government of, led by Muhammad Yunus, but Muhammad Yunus has vehemently denied this concern, calling them untrue. However, just yesterday, a large pro-caliphate rally took place in Dhaka University. If you let me, this is the picture here, raising serious concern about the situation. Given the U.S. government ongoing concern, U.S. considering taking serious action such sanction against U.S. government. And second part, lawlessness.
May I address this? In general, may I address this, sir?
And 8 years.
I think we're looking for a response, and I'm going to give you one.
Please.
We condemn any instances of violence or intolerance directed toward members of minority communities in any country, and have welcomed measures taken by Bangladesh's interim government to ensure safety and security for all in Bangladesh. That's what we're watching. That's what we expect. And that will be what continues.
And
Thank you, everyone. We've got a very busy day in front of us. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
We will do it. I know there might be more things to talk about on Friday. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.